So, you're a traveler, a camper, a hiker, or even a backpacker, and you want to upgrade your car camping experience. But you don't want to be saddled with a big, bulky RV or trailer because you still want to be able to get to those difficult to reach hiking areas. And you want to be able to pull up on the side of the road and set up camp in no time at all. And you want to be comfortable and sleeping in a nice bed, staying warm at night, and be away from all the critters. And you still want to be able to do this all season long, not just in the summertime. Chances are, if you said yes to most or all of the things above, then you have been already looking at rooftop tents. Because that is how I got into the search for a rooftop tent. But there are so many different types and brands of rooftop tents out there that it can be daunting trying to find the perfect tent to suit your needs. In this video, I will show you how I decided on the tent that I did get, the CVT Mt Hood. I will point to you the pros and the cons of each different rooftop tent, and hopefully this will be helpful in your quest. Before we get started discussing all the different types of rooftop tents, I do want to point out that you have to make sure that the roof rack that you have is able to support the rooftop tent that you are going to get. In another video that I will be putting out, I will go over how I changed from the factory setting roof rack of my Subaru Outback to a Frontrunner Slimline 2 to better be able to hold the weight of a rooftop tent.
So, now on to rooftop tents. There are two major types of rooftop tents, the soft shell and the hard shell. First, let's talk about soft shell rooftop tents such as the Tepui, the ARB Simpson Series 3, and the Frontrunner. The main advantage of soft shell rooftop tents is their price. They range from $252 at the lowest to less than $2,000 for the high-quality branded tents. Most soft-shell rooftop tents are also lighter than hard-shell rooftop tents, which is a big plus if you don't want to change from factory-setting roof racks and are concerned about your car's gas mileage. Of course, that depends on the size of the tent you are getting. The lightest soft-shell rooftop tent, the Frontrunner, runs at 88 pounds, while those that can sleep 4 or more people can run up to 150 to 200 pounds. Another advantage of soft-shell rooftop tents is that they fold smaller and have a larger footprint when set up, meaning you have more space inside to fit 2 to 4 people easily. With a bifold style shown here, it folds into half the size and doubles in size when open. This type of tent makes it easy to attach and annex to your rooftop tent, adding a more usable space underneath. If you see in the picture above, most ladders are actually underneath the tent, so you're also shielded from the elements when going up and down. That being said, the setup time is significant, about 5 to 10 minutes ideally, but realistically it is closer to 10 minutes, and pretty much all soft-shell rooftop tents is better with 2 people setting it up unless you want to take even longer. Then it is possible for 1 person to do so. Setting up in windy conditions or in the rain make it even harder. Just imagine putting up your ground tent, only instead of standing on firm level ground, you're balancing on your car's tires, bumper, or tailgate. Because of its larger footprint, soft-shell rooftop tents also require more parking space to set up, so you cannot just pull up on the side of a forest road and easily set up camp. You can see actually in the picture here that the ladder is far away from the car. So this is how much space you would need when you are parking. As the roof and walls are fabric, it also offers less insulation. Another consideration for softshell rooftop tents is that although the fabric is treated to be water resistant, in a downpour, like any ground tent, it can get saturated and leak. Its large surface area and fabric construction make it noisy in windy conditions as well. Additional guy wires can be placed to help keep the tent stable in windy conditions, but that is an extra step you'd have to take and does not completely remove the wind flapping noise. This type of rooftop tent is bulky when placed on top of the car and increases the car's drag on the road, affecting car stability and mileage, as you can see in the picture on the right. And again, because of all the fabric of the tent, it is just more prone to wear and tear compared to hardshell rooftop tents. Now, let's move on to hardshell rooftop tents. Some popular brands include the Roofnest Sparrow, the Bush Company Alpha Series, and the Alucab. Being that the tent, roof, and the floor is made of either aluminum or fiberglass with fabric only on the sides, it is more insulated than softshell rooftop tents. These tents normally come with an insulated lining on the roof and an anti-condensation mat on the floor, adding insulation to the mattress inside. They are also significantly quicker to set up. You can open a clamshell tent in under 90 seconds as compared to a softshell rooftop tent, which takes 5 to 10 minutes to open. In a previous video I posted doing a walkthrough of a rooftop tent, you can see how quickly I can open the tent with one hand. It is a lot easier to open and take down as well. Most types of hardshell rooftop tents can be easily done by one person. This is made possible because of the mechanical or gas assist lifts that hardshell rooftop tops have. Another bonus is that they allow the tent to be opened even with weight on top of it. Most hardshell rooftop tents can be opened even with 100 pounds of items still on top of it, something that is not even feasible with softshell rooftop tents. Because of its hardshell top, it is more resistant to elements and less prone to wear and tear. You do not run the risk of water leaking in the tent during a downpour, and the tents can withstand snow on top of the tent roof with no problems. Wind noise is also less than in a softshell tent, and another advantage of the hardshell tent is that you can actually park your car so that the hardshell part of the tent helps block the wind. Well, except for the pop-up type of tent, which I will get to later on. It has a significantly lower profile when closed, as seen in the picture, and this allows it to be more streamlined and aerodynamic, as seen in the picture on the right. And depending on the type of tent you get, you can have additional crossbars attached on the roof of the tent for more storage, or you can unzip the tent itself and use the hardshell as a storage space like you would a regular Thule or Yakima cargo box. Hardshell rooftop tents, however, are more expensive than softshell rooftop tents, ranging in price from $3,000 up to $4,500. They are also heavier, ranging from the lightest at 140 pounds up to close to 200 pounds. This means you do have an initial cost of making sure your roof racks can handle that added weight, which normally means changing from the factory roof racks to an aftermarket roof rack, which puts you out another $700 to $1,000 depending on the type of roof rack you get. With the exception of the hybrid type of hardshell rooftop tent, which I will get to later on, hardshell tents have a smaller footprint compared to softshell rooftop tents. What that means is that what you see is what you get. The length and the width of the tent when closed is still the same as when open, which means you have more snug fit inside the tent than in a softshell tent. So let's do a quick recap of the pros and cons of softshell and hardshell rooftop tents. If you can see the list I have here, you can see that I leaned more towards the hardshell rooftop tents based on the fewer cons it has. But both are really good tents, and it's a matter of what you're looking for in a tent and if you handle the cons of whatever tent you do end up choosing. For some, the cost and the weight of hardshell tents can be a deal breaker, and that is totally understandable. Now that I have shown you how I ended up choosing the hardshell rooftop tents, let's talk more about this type of tent in detail. I mentioned earlier that hardshell rooftop tents can be made in aluminum or fiberglass. Aluminum rooftop tents are hardier and can withstand abuse better, which makes it perfect for people that do a lot of rough roading and overlanding where tree branches can hit the tent. They do tend to be heavier than fiberglass tents, which does affect gas mileage, and being so high up on top of your vehicle can make it more prone to rollover accidents. Aluminum tents also tend to be thinner, which makes them more aerodynamic than the fiberglass, which makes them, it improves your gas mileage. Because of the strength of the aluminum rooftop tents, they generally are made to have T-channels on their sides that allows for accessories to be added on the tent, such as awnings, shovels, high-low jack, max tracks, etc. They can also accommodate crossbars on the top. Aluminum tents are able to support up to 650 pounds of extra weight on it. In contrast, fiberglass allows for a lightweight shell that is strong enough to withstand regular punishment on the roads and the trails, which results in better gas mileage. But they are susceptible to cracking if impacted by another object, say a tree limb or a rock. Although the cracks are fixable, they are costly. They are also thicker than aluminum-made tents, which means that you can put more items inside the tent, like a ladder and thicker beddings, which is a plus, but it makes them less aerodynamic than thinner aluminum tents. Fiberglass type of tents do not have the strength to support T-channels on the side and does not allow for accessories to be added. So effectively, you lose the roof rack functionality of the vehicle unless you remove the tent component and use the fiberglass hardshell just as a cargo box, a feature that the Tepui high box tents offer. Or you get the Roofnest Sparrow, which comes with a built-in gear storage area that you attach a storage bag to and solar mounting area on its roof. Hardshell rooftop tents come in 3 types: the hybrid, the pop-up, and the wedge or clamshell type. The hybrid is basically the best of both worlds if you want to combine the space of a soft-shell rooftop tent and the durability of a hard-shell rooftop tent. One thing to note about hybrid tents is that they are made of fiberglass and all the pros and cons that come with that. The brands I have here are the Roofnest Condor on the left and the iCamper on the right. The biggest pro of a hybrid tent is that it can fit 4 people. Like a soft-shell rooftop tent, it has a small footprint folded and has a large footprint when opened. Because of this, they can be mounted on most cars and are not just limited to trucks and SUVs. Because of how the tent is set up, with a hardshell becoming part of the wall instead of the roof, hybrid tents come with sky windows or skylights, which if you want to lay down and watch the stars while keeping warm at night is a huge plus. Just like how a soft-shell rooftop tent is set up, hybrid tents make it easier to attach and annex underneath the tent. You can also easily zip an awning to the rainfly of the tent, which adds a lot of shade and cover around the car. The hardshell side of the tent can be positioned so that it blocks the wind on one side, which keeps the tent warmer than an ordinary softshell tent. Just like a softshell rooftop tent, hybrid tents require larger space to set up. Because you are packing more tent material in a more compact hardshell, there is minimal space for bedding inside. But the ladder, being part of the tent structure, does store inside the hardshell, and you would never forget or accidentally leave the ladder behind. Of the three types of hardshell tents, the hybrid also would take the longest time to take down and set up. It does come with a rainfly to protect you from the elements, but just like in the softshell rooftop tent, although you have 2 layers of tent fabric that are treated to be waterproof, you still run the risk of it failing in a downpour. It also would hold up less under the weight of snow compared to the pop-up or wedge type of tents. And if you want to reposition the car to level the car or block the wind or for whatever reason, you would have to fold the tent and close it every single time. Now let's talk about the pop-up tents. This is another tent that is made of fiberglass. On the left, you have the Roofnest Sparrow, and on the right, you have the Tepui High Box, which I mentioned earlier. The pop-up design allows for even headroom on all corners of the tent, which allows for more usable space in the tent as compared to the wedge or clamshell tent. The headroom allows for 2 adults to sit comfortably in the tent. There is enough interior space when the tent is closed to store all the beddings and the ladder inside, which frees up room inside the vehicle for other items. It is shorter in length than the wedge or clamshell tent. Now, this can be a good thing if you are mounting this in a car or a smaller SUV, as it will not stick too far out, but if you are a tall individual, 6 feet tall or even taller, this could be a con. This has the most number of windows of the 3 hardshell tents, with 4 windows, unless you count the skylight of the hybrid tent as the 4th window. This makes it brighter and more airy inside the tent. You can also leave the tent open when repositioning the car. And it requires minimal parking space to set up camp due to its small footprint. Technically, the pop-up tent is able to be closed with just 1 person, but it is easier to close it with 2 people as it has a tendency to pop open on one end while you are latching the other end shut. Because of its fiberglass make, this does take up the roof rack space, meaning you have to fit every other item inside the vehicle unless you get the Roofnest Sparrow, which has the built-in gear storage area on its roof. The pop-up tent can only fit 2 people max. And last but not the least, let's talk about the wedge or clamshell hardshell rooftop tent. These are aluminum-made tents, which comes with all its pros and cons. On the top left, you have the Alucab. On the right, you have the Bush Company Alpha Series, and on the bottom here, you have the Bush Company Black Series, which is the company's interesting answer to having a wedge tent with an even headroom of a pop-up tent. The Alucab and the Bush Company are both South African-based companies. And on the bottom right here, you have the American-based Roofnest Falcon. The wedge type of tent has the quickest setup and takedown of all the types of tents we have discussed. It can be opened by 1 person in under 90 seconds. The biggest or second biggest pro for me for this type of tent is that it comes with T-channels along the sides, which allows for accessories to be mounted. You also can have additional crossbars attached on the top of the rooftop tent. Between the T-channels and the crossbars, this type of rooftop tent allows you to keep the functionality of the vehicle's roof rack and allows you to carry a wide variety of equipment to free up space inside the vehicle. You do have more headroom on one end of the tent compared to the other tents. For comparison, the Roofnest Sparrow's headroom, that's the pop-up tent, is 40 inches, whereas the Roofnest Condor's headroom, the hybrid tent, is 50 inches, and this Roofnest Falcon's headroom is 60 inches. This has the lowest profile of the tents when closed, which makes it the most aerodynamic. And depending on the brand of the wedge tent, you can easily leave beddings inside the tent for the Alucab and the Bush Company tents, which are 10 inches thick when closed, or if you plan it accordingly, you can leave some beddings inside for the Roofnest or CVT Mt Hood tents, which are 6.5 inches when closed. Because of its wedge shape, you can easily position the car to divert wind and it sheds rain and snow with no issues. And like the pop-up tent, you can easily move and reposition the car with the tent left open. The biggest drawback with this type of tent is its weight. The Alucab weighs 194 pounds, while the Bush Company tent weighs a whopping 220 pounds. Thankfully, the Roofnest and CVT Wedge tents are a more respectable 140 to 150 pounds. With the weight and dimensions of the Alucab and Bush Company tents, they really are more appropriate for trucks rather than cars and lighter SUVs like what I have. In all due fairness, if I had a truck, I would most likely be considering those two brands for a rooftop tent because of their top-notch quality. The second biggest drawback for the Wedge tent is its price. It is the most expensive type of hardshell tent, but then again, its durability and versatility comes with a price. Because of the Wedge slim profile, the ladder has to be stored elsewhere, unlike the hybrid and pop-up tents, which makes my fear of leaving the ladder behind an all too real concern. If I do leave the ladder behind, getting up inside the tent and going down will be an interesting challenge. And lastly, the dimensions of the Wedge tent make it the biggest of the three types when closed. Because you lose the usable headspace at its shortest part, Wedge tents tend to be longer. This is actually a positive for taller individuals that would not fit in pop-up tents. But for those with smaller SUVs, this rooftop tent will tend to hang over past the roof of the car. Now that we've discussed all the pros and cons of the different types of hardshell rooftop tents, let me summarize things briefly. Each type of hardshell tent has their draws. What you end up choosing really depends on your needs. If you have 3 to 4 people that plan to sleep in the tent, go with a hybrid tent. If you have a car or a small SUV which cannot take too much additional weight, go with a pop-up tent. If you want the functionality of having accessories attached to the tent, such as awnings, shovels, lights, recovery boards, etc., then you will go with a wedge or clamshell tent. Since we like the durability and versatility of aluminum hardshell tents, combined with a low profile and quick and easy setup and takedown time of the Wedge tents, we ended up deciding between the CVT Mt Hood and the Roofnest Falcon. We narrowed our choices to these two brands because of a couple of factors. Both are based in the US, which makes it easier to contact them in case of repairs or other issues. Being based in the US, we didn't have to deal with freight charges for delivery of the rooftop tent as well. Both are also lighter and more affordable than their counterparts at the Alucab and Bush Company. As I said earlier, if I had a vehicle more suited for the rugged demands of actual overlanding, I most likely would be considering the Alucab or Bush Company tents. But since I have a Subaru Outback and I only plan on taking it to trails for hiking and camping rather than rock crawling or fjording rivers, I am happy to choose between the Falcon or the Mt Hood. The Mt Hood is shorter by 5 inches compared to the Falcon. For us, as we are not very tall individuals, we actually prefer the shorter length of the Mt Hood so it did not hang over the roof of the car too much. To note though, the dimensions I am comparing here are their smallest size. Mt Hood actually comes in 3 different sizes, with a small at 50 inches width, medium at 56 inches, and large at 60 inches. Whereas the Falcon comes in a regular and an XL, which is 60 inches in width. The lengths of all these tents do not change at 85 inches for the Mt Hood and 90 inches for the Falcon. The headroom had a 5-inch difference, which is really not that significant for us, again, because we are not very tall individuals. The tent weight is again negligible because the Mt Hood already comes with the crossbars. Although an LED lighting would be nice inside the tent, it wasn't anything that we needed badly since we planned on having lanterns anyway. One thing I would like to note is that both companies have excellent customer service and answered my multitude of questions while I was comparing the two of them. CVT is based in Bend, Oregon, which we could easily get to as compared to Roofnest base in Boulder, Colorado. This actually was one of the biggest factors in our decision because I like to see what I am purchasing, especially when it's a big ticket item. As a bonus, we didn't have to wait for the rooftop tent to be delivered as they were available for purchase on the same day. In contrast, we would have to wait 1 to 2 months before we could get the roof nest between the availability of the product and shipping times, and I really wanted to get and use the rooftop tent as soon as possible. CVT Mt Hood was also cheaper by more than $500 really, as the price of the Mt Hood already included the crossbars while it is an extra accessory for the roof nest. As cherry on the top, Oregon also doesn't have any sales tax. Another advantage of picking the tent up in their store is that for an extra fee, you can have them install the rooftop tent as well. Since I did not relish the thought of lifting 150 pounds over my head and up on the roof of my SUV and then having to make sure things were aligned, this was money I was all too willing to spend to have them do all the installation. With the roof nest, shipping is free, but then you'd have to do all the installation on your own. And the last item is really more of a nitpicking, but I really love the latches on the CVT Mt Hood. They are thicker and sturdier than the latches that come with the Falcon. I have read reviews on the roof nest tents that at times the latches are not aligned, which really is not the fault of the company, but it gets misaligned during the delivery process. It is easy to fix the alignment to get the tent to close, but I wanted a latch that does not easily get whacked out of alignment. The sturdy latches also give me more of a sense of confidence that the tent will not just pop up while driving on the freeway. Although that is just me. The chances of that happening are probably pretty slim. Well, thank you for listening to my video. I hope you enjoyed following along with my thought process and showing just how I ended up with a rooftop tent that I did. Again, this is just my justification for how I chose our own tent. Each tent has their pros and cons, which I highlighted in here, and it would be up to you and what you're looking to get out of your tent to choose which tent is most appropriate for your needs. And if you found this video helpful, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. And if you have any other questions, topics, or videos that you want me to cover, let me know in the comments below. Happy roamings, everybody!